The Instagram notification popped up while I was sipping my morning coffee. Reagan is at the Grand Cayman Resort. My husband's secretary, tagging her location at the same hotel where Colton was supposedly attending a crucial business summit. Curious coincidence. I'm Nina, and this wasn't the first time I'd caught the scent of my husband's lies. But it would definitely be the last. My fingers trembled slightly as I clicked through Reagan's story. There it was, a perfectly manicured hand holding a mojito against the sunset. The same gaudy Rolex I'd given Colton for our anniversary, clearly visible on the wrist of whoever was taking the photo. Dealing with intense negotiations, the caption read, followed by a winking emoji. Oh, I bet you are. I set my phone down and walked to my home office, the one Colton called my little hobby room. Opening my laptop, I pulled up the document I'd been working on for the past 3 years, my online MBA thesis on corporate restructuring, the one I'd completed last month, magna cum laude. The phone rang. I checked the caller ID, Victor Knight. Nina? His gravelly voice carried a hint of amusement. I assume you've seen the photos? How did you? I make it my business to know things, especially when they involve my former protege making a fool of himself. Shall we meet for lunch? I hesitated. Victor was Colton's former mentor, a board member with significant influence. Meeting him would be crossing a line. The Ivory Room, 1 hour, he said, unless you'd prefer to stick with your current plan of… What exactly? Crying? Divorce lawyers? Please. I'll be there. The Ivory Room buzzed with power lunches and deal-making. Victor stood as I approached, cutting an imposing figure in his tailored suit. You look remarkably composed for someone who just discovered their husband's infidelity, he said, studying me. What makes you think this is the first time I've discovered it? His eyebrows rose slightly. Do tell. 3 years ago, a weekend in Vegas with his golf buddies. I saw the credit card statements. That's when I started my MBA. Ah, Victor smiled. And Colton has no idea? He thinks I've been taking online cooking classes. I sipped my water. He never actually tasted any of the meals I supposedly learned. Because he's been too busy dining with Reagan? Among others. I met Victor's gaze. Why did you really call me here? He leaned forward. Because I've watched Colton systematically destroy everything his father and I built. Because the board is losing confidence. Because someone needs to step in before he runs the company into the ground. He paused. And because you, my dear, are far more qualified than anyone realizes. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that a woman with an MBA, intimate knowledge of the company's inner workings, and a very personal motivation for justice might be exactly what we need. He pulled out his phone, showing me a document. These are my shares in the company. Silent ownership accumulated over years. Combined with the right strategy, they could shift the balance of power. My heart raced, but I kept my voice steady. And what would you want in return? A seat at the table, and the pleasure of watching Colton's face when he realizes who orchestrated his fall. Victor stood, dropping his napkin on the table. Think about it, but don't take too long. Opportunities like this, they're like revenge, best served while still hot. I watched him leave, my mind already racing with possibilities. My phone buzzed, another Instagram notification. Reagan posting a photo of herself in a bikini. Colton's favorite watch just visible at the edge of the frame. Having the time of my life, the caption read. I smiled, picking up my phone to text Victor. I'm in. When do we start? His reply came instantly. Colton's fall has been a long time coming. I just didn't expect his replacement to be… you. I stared at the message, feeling a calm settle over me. The kind of calm that comes with absolute certainty. Colton thought he married a trophy wife. He was about to discover he'd married his replacement instead. The next week passed in a blur of calculated moves. While Colton extended his business trip by 3 days, I began laying the groundwork for his downfall. Your husband's corporate credit card statements, Victor said, sliding a folder across his desk. Notice anything interesting? I flipped through the pages, noting the patterns. 5-star hotels, expensive restaurants, all charged as business expenses. I paused at one entry. A Cartier purchase listed as client gifts? Reagan does love her jewelry, Victor mused. But more importantly, notice the dates. I did. Every extravagant purchase aligned perfectly with Colton's supposed business trips. He's been embezzling company funds to finance his affair, among other indiscretions. Victor pulled out another file. These are the real quarterly reports. Compare them to what Colton presented to the board last month. The differences were stark. Colton had been cooking the books, hiding losses under creative accounting. Why are you showing me this now? Victor leaned back. Because in exactly 1 hour, an anonymous email containing these documents will reach every board member. And when they start asking questions, he smiled. Well, it would be helpful to have someone with intimate knowledge of the company's operations ready to step in. My phone buzzed. A text from Colton. Flight delayed. Don't wait up. I showed it to Victor, who chuckled. Interesting, considering Reagan called in sick today. Time to make our next move, I said, pulling out my laptop. I need access to Colton's email. Already handled. Victor handed me a post-it with login credentials. Courtesy of our head of IT security. Ronnie's quite skilled and surprisingly discreet. I logged in, my stomach turning at the intimate exchanges between Colton and Reagan. But more importantly, I found what I was looking for. Emails discussing the doctored financial reports. Forward those to my secure account, Victor instructed, and then we wait. We didn't wait long. Within hours of the anonymous email blast, my phone exploded with notifications. Board members demanding emergency meetings. Colton's frantic calls, which I ignored. Nina! Reagan's voice caught me as I entered the office building the next morning. Have you heard from Colton? He's not answering his phone. I smiled sweetly. Still in Cayman, last I heard. Though the photos looked lovely, you must tell me about the resort sometime. The color drained from her face. I don't love the bracelet, by the way. Cartier, isn't it? Must have been quite the client gift. Before she could respond, Melanie, one of the senior board members, approached us. Nina, good timing. We need to speak with you. The boardroom was tense. Colton sat at one end, tie askew, looking like he hadn't slept. Victor occupied the other end, the picture of calm authority. These allegations are ridiculous, Colton was saying. Someone's clearly trying to frame me. The evidence is quite compelling, Melanie countered, unless you can explain these discrepancies. I can explain everything, he insisted. Just give me time to delete more emails, Victor interrupted. Or perhaps time to coordinate stories with your secretary. Colton's face reddened. You orchestrated this, didn't you? You've always wanted control. Actually, I spoke up, I believe these documents speak for themselves. And as someone who's managed the household accounts for years, I'm quite familiar with creative bookkeeping. All eyes turned to me. Nina, Colton warned, don't. I pulled out my own folder. In fact, I've prepared a detailed analysis of the company's actual financial position, including recommendations for immediate corrective actions. Victor smiled. Perhaps Mrs. Woods would care to share her insights? For the next hour, I walked the board through everything: the hidden losses, the misappropriated funds, the strategic missteps. Years of watching, learning, and preparing culminated in this moment. This is impressive, Melanie said. Where did you learn all this? Let's just say I've been auditing more than cooking classes. The vote was unanimous. Colton was suspended pending investigation, and I was named interim financial advisor to help stabilize the situation. As the board filed out, Colton grabbed my arm. What have you done? I pulled free. I learned from the best, darling. You taught me that everything's just business. Later that evening, I sat in my new office reviewing documents when an email arrived. From Reagan to the entire company. Due to personal circumstances, I am tendering my immediate resignation. I forwarded it to Victor with a single comment. One down. His reply was immediate. Well played. But remember, in chess, the queen must protect herself from all sides, even from those who helped her take the throne. I stared at his warning, remembering how he'd turned on Colton, his own protege. Message received, Victor. Message received. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. I arrived at 7:30, watching the sunrise paint the city skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows of what would soon be my office. Early bird gets the worm? Ronnie, the head of security, appeared at my door. Something like that. I adjusted my blazer. Is everything ready? He nodded, handing me a tablet. Live feed from the lobby. Colton just arrived. He's with his lawyer. I watched my husband pace the lobby, running his hands through his disheveled hair. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by nervous energy. Send them up in 10 minutes, I instructed. Let them sweat a little. The boardroom filled slowly. Melanie caught my eye as she entered, giving me a subtle nod. Victor took his usual seat, looking perfectly composed. Sullivan, the youngest board member, kept checking his phone nervously. Colton burst in last, his lawyer trailing behind. "This is absurd. You can't just—" "Please take your seat, Mr. Woods." Melanie cut him off. "We have serious matters to discuss." I stayed quiet, watching the drama unfold. The financial reports were displayed on the large screen. Every fraudulent transaction, every misappropriated fund laid bare. "These numbers don't tell the whole story," Colton's lawyer argued. "My client has explanations for the Cartier purchases?" Victor interrupted. "Or perhaps the suite at the Grand Cayman?" Sullivan cleared his throat. "The shareholders are demanding answers. Our stock dropped 12% yesterday. I built this company." Colton slammed his fist on the table. "Everything I did was for its benefit." "Including your secretary?" The words left my mouth before I could stop them. The room fell silent. Colton turned to me, face red. "Nina, you don't understand." "Actually, I understand perfectly." I stood, smoothing my skirt. "Shall we discuss the offshore account you opened last month? The one where you've been transferring company funds?" His lawyer whispered something urgently, but Colton ignored him. "How did you—" "Or maybe we should talk about the fake consulting firm you created to funnel bonuses to Reagan." I clicked to the next slide. Interesting choice, using her mother's maiden name for the company registration. "You've been spying on me?" "No, darling. I've been protecting my investments and the boards." I turned to address the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen the evidence. What you haven't seen is my proposal for moving forward." I distributed folders containing my complete strategy, restructuring plans, cost-cutting measures, and growth projections. "This is—" Melanie flipped through the pages, impressed. "Where did all this come from?" "From years of watching, learning, and preparing." I clicked to my final slide. "I also hold an MBA from Wharton, completed last month, top of my class." "Impossible," Colton sputtered. "You were taking cooking classes." "Amazing what one can accomplish while you're busy with other activities." I met each board member's eyes. I know this company inside and out. I know where we're bleeding money and how to stop it. Most importantly, I know how to restore shareholder confidence. Victor stood. "I move to immediately terminate Colton's position as CEO, effective immediately." "Seconded," Melanie added quickly. "And," Victor continued, "I nominate Nina Woods as interim CEO." The room erupted in murmurs. Sullivan looked uncertain. "But she's his wife." "Soon-to-be ex-wife," I corrected. "And I believe my qualifications speak for themselves." The vote wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive, 7-2 in favor. Colton stood, shaking. "You can't do this. You're nothing without me." "Security will escort you out," I replied calmly. "Your personal items will be shipped to your hotel." As Ronnie led him toward the door, Colton turned back. What are you doing, Nina?" I met his gaze, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. "Succeeding." After the meeting, Melanie lingered. "That was quite a performance." "It wasn't a performance." She smiled. "No, I suppose it wasn't. Your mother would be proud." I looked up sharply. "You knew my mother?" "We were friends years ago, before—" She paused. "Well, that's a conversation for another time. Just be careful, Nina. Victory has a way of changing people." "I'm already changed," I replied, watching Colton's figure disappear into a taxi below. My phone buzzed. A text from Victor. "Congratulations, CEO. Dinner tonight to discuss next steps." I typed back. "Rain check. I have a company to run." Looking out over the city, I felt a strange mix of triumph and emptiness. I'd won the crown, but the real war was just beginning. And somewhere in this concrete jungle, Victor was already planning his next move. The news of my appointment spread like wildfire. By evening, my phone was flooded with messages. Congratulations from business associates, shocked inquiries from friends, and one text that made my blood run cold. "We need to talk." Kira, my sister, the last person I wanted to hear from. I was reviewing quarterly projections when she stormed into my office the next morning, designer heels clicking against marble. "Really, Nina? A corporate takeover?" Kira's voice dripped with disdain. "Is this your idea of marriage counseling?" I kept my eyes on my screen. How did you get past security? I told them I was your sister. Remember that? Or have you forgotten family entirely? That made me look up. Rich, coming from you. Where were you when Colton started his affairs? Oh, right, covering for him. She flinched. I never. Don't. I pulled up an email on my screen, turning it toward her. 2 years ago, you and Colton discussing his weekend with Reagan. You knew. Kira sank into the chair across from me. I was trying to protect you. By lying to me? By watching him make a fool of me? By preventing you from doing exactly this? She gestured around the office. Looking at you now, you're turning into Mom. The words hit like a slap. Our mother, brilliant, ruthless, dead at 45 from a stress-induced heart attack. The woman who'd built an empire and lost everything else in the process. Get out. Nina, security will escort you out. I pressed the intercom. And Kira, don't come back. As she left, Melanie entered, carrying a thick folder. Family drama? Nothing important. I reached for the folder. What's this? Your mother's old files. She placed them on my desk. I thought you should see them. I opened the folder and my heart stopped. There, in faded ink, was a contract, my father's signature transferring his shares to my mother's company, the same company that later merged with what would become Colton's empire. Dad never lost his business, I whispered. Mom took it. Melanie nodded grimly, and Victor helped her do it. The pieces clicked into place. Victor's sudden interest in helping me, his carefully accumulated shares. He's trying to do it again. History has a way of repeating itself. Melanie leaned forward. Your mother was brilliant, but she trusted the wrong people. Don't make her mistakes. A knock interrupted us. Sullivan stood in the doorway, looking nervous. Sorry to interrupt, but there's something you need to see. He pulled up a financial report on my screen. Buried in the footnotes was a series of transactions, money moving between shell companies, all leading back to one source. These are dated 3 years ago, I said, scanning the numbers. Sullivan nodded. When your father's company was absorbed, the money trail, it leads to accounts controlled by Victor and Colton. My father had died believing he'd failed in business. My mother had died thinking she'd won. And all along, they worked together, I realized. Victor and Colton, they orchestrated the whole thing. Nina, Melanie warned, seeing the rage in my eyes. Don't do anything rash. But I was already moving, storming toward Victor's office. He looked up calmly as I entered, as if he'd been expecting me. Ah, Nina, I was just thinking about... I slammed the documents on his desk. You helped Colton destroy my father's company. He didn't even glance at the papers. Business is business. Your father was weak. Your mother understood that. And now what? You're using me to take control just like you used her? Victor smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You're smarter than your mother was. I thought we could be allies. We're done. Are we? He pressed a button on his phone and an email appeared on my screen. My stomach dropped. It was from 3 days ago. Me, authorizing questionable fund transfers to secure board votes. Delete it, I demanded. Oh, I have copies, just like I'm sure you have copies of Colton's indiscretions. He stood, straightening his tie. We're more alike than you think, Nina. The only question is, are we better as friends or enemies? I left his office feeling sick, my mother's ghost haunting every step. My phone buzzed, another text from Kira. Found something in Mom's old files. You need to see this. I stared at the message, remembering Melanie's words about trusting the wrong people. The game was getting more complicated, and I was starting to understand why my mother's heart gave out. But I wasn't my mother, and I wasn't about to let history repeat itself. The headline hit at 8 a.m., New CEO's relationship with board member questioned. Below it, a grainy photo of Victor and me at the ivory room, his hand on my arm as we left. The article heavily implied an affair, suggesting my rise to power came through means other than merit. Reagan, I muttered, recognizing her revenge. Ronnie appeared in my doorway. The press is gathering in the lobby. Board members are demanding statements. Of course they are. I straightened my jacket. Get me everything you have on Reagan's activities since her resignation, and find out who's backing her. Already did. He handed me a file. She's been meeting with Victor. I laughed bitterly. Should have seen that coming. My phone rang. Melanie, turn on the financial news. I did. There was Victor, looking appropriately concerned as he addressed reporters. While I have complete confidence in Nina's capabilities, perhaps the stress of recent events has affected her judgment. The board may need to consider temporary leadership alternatives. That's Snake, I hissed. Nina, Melanie's voice was urgent. Check your email now. A new message had just arrived, from Victor to the entire board. Attached was a proposal for emergency restructuring, effectively stripping me of power while maintaining my title as a figurehead. He's making his move, I said. Yes, but look at paragraph 6. I scrolled down and felt my blood freeze. Hidden in the legal jargon was a clause allowing for immediate removal of any executive showing signs of emotional instability or personal conflicts. He buried this weeks ago, I realized, when he was helping me take down Colton. Nina, Melanie lowered her voice. Victor destroys what he can't own. A knock at my door. Sullivan again, looking pale. The stock is dropping. Major shareholders are calling. I stood. Decision made. Get me Ronnie and the PR team. Now. 20 minutes later, I walked into the press conference. Cameras flashed as I approached the podium, Victor watching from the sidelines with a satisfied smirk. Good morning, I began. I'd like to address the recent allegations directly. I pulled out my phone, playing an audio recording. Victor's voice filled the room. Your mother understood business requires sacrifice, just like you understand that these board votes need proper motivation. The smirk vanished from Victor's face. This company has suffered from behind-the-scenes manipulation for too long, I continued, which is why I've initiated a full audit of all executive communications and transactions over the past 5 years. Gasps from the audience. Victor stepped forward, but I wasn't finished. Additionally, I've submitted comprehensive documentation to the SEC regarding certain board members' involvement in market manipulation and corporate espionage. You're bluffing, Victor called out. I smiled. Check your email. He did, his face growing paler by the second. There it was. Every conversation, every deal, every betrayal meticulously documented. I'd learned from the best, after all. Any questions? I asked the reporters. The room erupted, but I was watching Victor slip away, phone pressed to his ear. Damage control, no doubt. Back in my office, Ronnie waited with updates. Reagan's gone dark. Victor's calling an emergency board meeting. Let him. I turned to my computer, sending a pre-prepared email. Because this just went to every major financial publication. He read over my shoulder, a detailed expose of Victor's history of corporate takeovers, including his role in my father's company's downfall. This will start a war, Ronnie warned. No, I corrected. This will end one. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Clever move, but did you really think Victor wouldn't have contingency plans? Reagan? Before I could respond, Sullivan burst in. Nina, you need to see this. He pulled up a breaking news alert. Victor had just announced a merger deal with our biggest competitor, a deal that would dilute current shareholder power and potentially force massive layoffs. He's been planning this for months, Sullivan said. The paperwork is ironclad. I felt the walls closing in. Victor had outmaneuvered me, using my own ambition as a distraction while he set up his real endgame. Nina? Melanie appeared in the doorway. The board's waiting. I gathered my files, mind racing. Victor thought he had me cornered, but he'd forgotten something crucial. I was my mother's daughter, and she'd taught me one final lesson before she died. Sometimes, she'd said, you have to burn everything down to build something better. I touched the flash drive in my pocket, containing information that could destroy not just Victor, but the entire company. The nuclear option. Time to see who would survive the flames. The knock on my door came at midnight. I'd been expecting it, sitting in my darkened living room with a glass of untouched whiskey. It's open, Colton. He stepped inside, looking thinner than I remembered. The designer suit was gone, replaced by jeans and a wrinkled shirt. You're not surprised to see me, he said. You were always predictable. I gestured to the chair across from me. Victor's merger announcement. You're here because of that, aren't you? He sat heavily. You know what that merger means. 40% of the workforce gone. Everything my father built dissolved into nothing. Suddenly you care about your father's legacy? Nina, please. His voice cracked. I know I hurt you, I know I betrayed everything we had, but this isn't about us anymore. Then what is it about? Redemption. He pulled out his phone, showing me emails. Victor's been planning this for years. He used me, used you, used everyone. But I found something, proof of illegal dealings that could stop the merger. I laughed bitterly. And you want to help out of the goodness of your heart? I want to help because I love you. He leaned forward. I never stopped loving you, Nina. The affairs, the lies. I was lost in my own ego. But watching you these past months, you're extraordinary. Save it. I stood, walking to the window. Your timing is suspicious, Colton. Right when I'm most vulnerable, you show up with exactly what I need? You think Victor sent me? Didn't he? Colton's silence was answer enough. What was the plan? I turned to face him. Get me to trust you, then leak some fabricated scandal, or just distract me long enough for Victor to push through the merger. It started that way, he admitted, but seeing you again. He stood, moving closer. We could stop him together, take back the company, run it the right way, you and me. For a moment, just a moment, I felt the pull of what we used to be, the dreams we'd shared, the life we'd planned. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Ronnie. Package delivered. You're right about one thing, I said. We could stop Victor together, but that would mean trusting you. You can trust me now. Can I? I picked up my laptop, showing him the screen. Because these surveillance photos suggest otherwise. His face fell as he saw himself meeting with Victor just hours ago. Nina, save your explanations. I pressed send on an email. While you were here distracting me, my team was implementing the real plan. His phone buzzed, then again, and again. What did you do? Check your email, darling. Everyone else is. He did, color draining from his face as he read. I'd just released everything, the complete history of Victor's manipulations, including Colton's willing participation in not just the affairs, but years of corporate fraud. You'll destroy everything, he whispered. No, I'll save it. The board is meeting an emergency session right now. Victor's merger can't proceed if he's under federal investigation. You're crazy. I learned from the best. I walked to the door, opening it. Goodbye, Colton. He paused in the doorway. You've changed. No, I've just stopped pretending to be what you wanted me to be. After he left, I poured out the whiskey and called Melanie. It's done, she said. The board has suspended Victor pending investigation. The merger's dead. And the fallout? Massive. Stock will take a hit, but we'll survive. Victor won't. My phone buzzed again. Victor himself. You have no idea what you've started. Another message appeared, this one from Sullivan. You need to see what Victor's really planning. Check your mailbox, now. I walked outside, finding a flash drive tucked into my mailbox. Inside was a single video file, security footage from my mother's office, the day before she died. Victor was there, threatening her with the same merger plan he'd tried to use on me. She'd refused him then, just as I had now. The next day, she was gone. Heart attack, they'd said. I closed the laptop, hands shaking. Not a heart attack. Murder. My phone rang. Melanie again. Nina, are you watching the news? Victor's gone missing. His private jet took off an hour ago. Destination unknown. I stared at the flash drive, understanding finally clicking into place. Victor hadn't just been playing corporate games. He'd been covering up something much darker. And now he was running. Nina? Melanie's voice was concerned. What do you want to do? I thought of my mother, of all the lies, of every betrayal that had led to this moment. Find him, I said, whatever it takes. The real war was just beginning. The emergency board meeting was interrupted by the last person anyone expected, a young man in a sharp suit who looked eerily like a younger version of Victor. Fabian Knight, he announced, striding into the boardroom flanked by two lawyers. And I believe you're discussing my father. The room fell silent. Victor's estranged son, the one he'd written out of his will years ago, was now standing before us with a stack of documents. Ms. Woods, he nodded to me. I believe you've been looking for evidence against my father. I studied him carefully. Why are you here, Fabian? Because Victor Knight doesn't just destroy companies. He tossed a file onto the table. He destroys families, and it's time someone stopped him. The file contained decades of Victor's machinations, not just business dealings, but personal vendettas, including detailed notes about my mother's last days. He killed her, I said quietly. Fabian nodded. Not directly, but he orchestrated the events that led to her death. Just like he did with my mother. Melanie picked up one of the documents. These are signed confessions from former board members. My father's good at covering his tracks, Fabian said, but he's not perfect, especially when it comes to family. Sullivan burst into the room. Victor's jet just landed in Geneva. Of course it did, Fabian smiled grimly. Where else would he go to access his hidden accounts? I stood. We need to move fast. Once he transfers those funds. Already handled, Fabian interrupted, pulling out his phone. Swiss authorities are waiting for him. Turns out having the same DNA as someone can be useful when proving financial fraud. The board members whispered among themselves as live footage appeared on the screens. Victor being led away in handcuffs at Geneva Airport. That's not all, Fabian continued. There's something else you need to see. He played an audio recording. Victor's voice filled the room, speaking to someone about my mother's company. Margaret's daughter will be easy to manipulate, Victor was saying. Just like her mother. Once Nina takes control, we'll implement the same strategy. The company will be ours within months. My hands clenched. When was this recorded? 3 months ago, right before he approached you about taking down Colton. The pieces fell into place. I hadn't been Victor's protege. I'd been his pawn, just like my mother. The board needs to vote, Melanie announced. Given this new evidence, the doors burst open again. Reagan walked in, looking desperate. Wait, I have information. Save it, Ronnie cut her off, following close behind. We found your offshore accounts, the ones Victor set up for you years ago. Reagan's face crumpled. He promised everyone something, Fabian said coldly. That was his specialty. The vote was quick and decisive. Victor was removed from the board, his assets frozen. The company would survive, stronger for having excised its cancer. There's one more thing, Fabian said as the board members filed out. He handed me a letter. My father wrote this to your mother the day before she died. I found it in his safe. I opened it with trembling hands. The words blurred before my eyes. Margaret, you were right. The cost is too high. I'll stop the merger, but there's something you need to know about Nina's future. The letter ended there, unfinished. He never sent it, Fabian explained. Instead, he went ahead with his plan. And now history almost repeated itself. I finished. Melanie approached us. The vote is complete. Victor Knight is removed. Nina Woods confirmed CEO. I looked at Fabian. What will you do now? Help you rebuild, he said simply. If you'll let me. Someone needs to make sure we don't become what we fought. My phone buzzed. A message from Kira. Saw the news. We need to talk about Mom. I showed the message to Melanie, who nodded. Family secrets have a way of surfacing. Question is, are you ready for more truth? Looking around the boardroom, at the aftermath of victory, at the cost of revenge, I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing. I wasn't alone anymore. Set up a secure line to Geneva, I told Ronnie. I want to speak to Victor before the authorities process him. What will you say? Fabian asked. I thought of my mother's unfinished story, of Victor's incomplete letter, of all the questions still unanswered. I'll ask him about the future he wanted to warn my mother about. I picked up my phone, because something tells me this isn't over. Fabian smiled grimly. With our fathers, it never is. The sun was setting over the city, casting long shadows through the boardroom windows. Somewhere in a Swiss jail cell, Victor Knight was waiting for my call. And somewhere in this building, more secrets were waiting to be uncovered. Time to finish what my mother started. The call from Geneva prison crackled with static. Victor's voice sounded older, defeated. I wondered when you'd call, he said. The letter to my mother, I replied. What did you need to warn her about? A long pause. Look in the old company archives. January 1992, the merger documents. I gestured to Ronnie, who was already typing. The files appeared on my screen, yellowed papers from another era. Page 6, Victor said. The original shareholders. There it was, in fading ink. My mother's signature and Kira's name. I don't understand, I said. Kira was just a child. Your mother put half the company in Kira's name. A trust, activated on her 30th birthday. Victor's laugh was hollow. Which was last month. My office door opened. Kira stood there, holding identical documents. I'll call you back, I told Victor, hanging up. So now you know, Kira said, walking in. Mom left me half of everything, the half you've been fighting for. I stared at my sister, seeing her differently. You knew? Found out last month. That's why I came back. She sat down. Mom knew what this company did to people. She wanted to protect me from it. But you... She smiled sadly. You were always more like her. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to see what you'd do, if you'd become her or be better. She placed a document on my desk. I'm signing over my shares to the employees. What? An employee ownership trust. The workers get profit sharing, voting rights, everything. She met my eyes. Mom's legacy destroyed our family. Maybe this way it can help others. My phone buzzed. Melanie. Turn on the news. The financial channels were exploding. Victor had died in his cell. Heart attack, they said. Just like my mother. Karma, Kira whispered. Fabian appeared in the doorway. I just heard about my father. His face was unreadable. The authorities found this in his cell. He handed me a USB drive. The file was a video, Victor's last confession. He detailed everything, the corporate raids, the manipulations, my mother's death. But the last part made my blood freeze. Nina, video Victor said, you were right about everything except one thing. Your mother's death wasn't murder. She killed herself when she realized what the company had done to her family, to you. This is the truth I couldn't tell her, that you were becoming exactly what she feared. I closed the laptop, hands shaking. He's wrong, Kira said firmly. You're not Mom. You're better. You exposed the truth. You fought back. And lost everything in the process. I looked around my empty office. Family, trust, peace of mind? No. Fabian stepped forward. You gained something better. A chance to do it right. My phone rang. Ronnie. The employees are gathering in the lobby. They've heard about the trust. We took the elevator down together. Me, Kira, and Fabian. The lobby was packed with workers, their faces anxious, hopeful. I stepped up to the microphone. Today marks a new chapter. This company no longer belongs to the Knights or the Woods family. It belongs to all of you. The crowd erupted in cheers. Kira squeezed my hand. What now? Fabian asked quietly. I watched the celebrating employees, people who'd lived in fear of mergers and layoffs, now owners of their own destiny. Now we build something better, I said, together. Later that night, I sat in my mother's old office reading her journal. The last entry caught my eye. Power isn't about control, it's about choice. I hope Nina learns this before it's too late. A knock at the door. Sullivan. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you. Reagan walked in, looking nervous. I know I'm the last person you want to see. What do you want? To make things right. She handed me a file. Everything I know about the old board members, their deals, their secrets. Use it to protect the employees. I studied her. Why? Because you did what I never could. Chose integrity over power. She turned to leave. Oh, and Nina, Colton's in rehab. He wanted you to know. After she left, Kira brought in coffee. You okay? Getting there. I looked at the city lights. You know what's funny? All this time, I thought I was fighting for power. But really, you were fighting for truth, she finished. My phone buzzed one last time. Melanie. Board meeting tomorrow? Ready to build something new? I looked at Kira, at the employees below, at the company that had cost us so much and given us a chance at redemption. Yes, I replied, finally ready. The sun was rising over the city. A new day, a new legacy. Not built on revenge or power, but on something stronger, the truth that had set us all free.